Hey, welcome. Okay, so in any war, you kind of just assume that soldiers are there to fight, right? But what happens when that whole idea just starts to fall apart? Today, we're diving into a really fascinating and frankly accelerating crisis for Russia's military. We're talking about a massive wave of its own troops surrendering in Ukraine.
And that brings us to the big question here. It's simple, but it's also pretty profound. Why? Why are thousands of soldiers choosing to be captured instead of fighting? We're going to dig into the data and really figure out what's going on behind those front lines.
So, to get a sense of the sheer scale of this, just look at this number. According to Ukrainian sources, we're talking about more than 10,000 Russian soldiers captured since the start of the full-scale invasion. That is a staggering figure, and it hints at a much, much bigger story. And get this, it's not just a big number, it's a growing one. The problem is actually accelerating. The data's showing a huge spike in surrenders, with more in just the last year than in the first 2 years of the war combined. So whatever is causing this, well, it's getting stronger and more effective by the day. So what is causing this acceleration? Well, the first big piece of the puzzle is a Ukrainian state project that's actively encouraging it. And it's called, pretty directly, I Want to Live. You know, the core idea here is kind of brilliant in how simple it is. Instead of just trying to fight every single soldier, Ukraine built a whole system to persuade them to just give up. It's basically a psychological operation, or PSYOP, designed for the digital age, and it taps right into that fundamental human instinct for survival. And they've made the process incredibly easy. I mean, think about it. A soldier can just use a chatbot on a website or a Telegram channel to get in touch. They get instructions for a safe way out, and then they surrender peacefully. All it takes is a few taps on their smartphone. So this puts soldiers at a crossroads with a really stark choice. On one hand, you've got life in the Russian army, with all the reports of terrible conditions and not enough supplies. And on the other hand, you have the I Want to Live program promising proper treatment under the Geneva Conventions, 3 meals a day, medical care. I mean, honestly, it's often better than what they're getting from their own command. Okay, so we know how they're surrendering, but the next big question is, who? Who are these soldiers taking this deal? The data on this paints a very, very specific picture. Yeah, when you start analyzing the demographics of these thousands of captured soldiers, it reveals a super clear and honestly a pretty telling picture of exactly who is being sent to the front lines. Just look at this breakdown. A massive 83% are rank and file soldiers. We're talking about the grunts, the infantry on the very front lines, what people grimly call cannon fodder. And look at the officers, just 3%, a tiny fraction because they're rarely in a position to get captured in the first place.
And the picture gets even sharper when you dig into their backgrounds. A full 40% of these captured soldiers have a criminal record. 38% were unemployed before they signed up, and 30% didn't even finish high school. What this paints is a profile of extreme vulnerability. Okay, so now hold that profile in your mind and compare it to this quote from Vladimir Putin from late 2024. The difference between the official rhetoric, what's being said, and the reality of who is actually being sent to fight, well, it's pretty stark to say the least.
So that begs the question, how does Russia end up with an army that looks so different from that official image? To really get why these guys are surrendering, we have to look at the recruitment playbook that got them to the front lines in the first place. And this right here is a really critical statistic. Almost a quarter, 1 in 4, of all captured soldiers say they were either forced or deliberately tricked into joining the military. Think about that. 1 in 4 men either didn't want to be there at all or was lied to about what they were getting into. So this whole recruitment playbook, it really preys on the most vulnerable parts of Russian society. We're talking about the poor, the unemployed, people with criminal records, even the chronically ill. They're lured in with these huge promises, massive paychecks, a chance to become the country's elite. And this strategy doesn't just stop at Russia's borders. Oh no, recruiters are going after potential soldiers from over 40 different countries, dangling the promise of Russian citizenship and life-changing money right in front of that. But the reality for these foreign fighters is, well, it's grim. Once they're captured, Russia often just refuses to include them in prisoner exchanges. They're abandoned, treated like they're totally disposable, and even called meat for the meat grinder. And you can really feel that callous attitude in this chilling quote. It's from a Russian soldier who is filming a group of African contract soldiers. It just highlights this deep-seated contempt that really seems to trickle down from the very top.
All right, so we've got the what, the how, the who, and the why. Let's wrap this up by answering that final, crucial question. So what? What does all this actually mean for the war itself?
Well, for Ukraine, the benefits are just enormous. Every single surrender depletes Russia's manpower, which weakens their attacks on key fronts. Plus, these captured soldiers provide invaluable real-time intelligence. And having all these prisoners gives Ukraine huge leverage when it comes to negotiating for their own prisoners back. It's like a strategic feedback loop. When you step back and look at the big picture, the I Want to Live project really represents a whole new front in modern warfare. It's a psyop that completely bypasses the old channels. It uses the one thing every soldier has, a smartphone in their pocket, to directly attack enemy morale and break apart their cohesion. And all of this leaves us with one last kind of provocative thought to chew on. When your whole recruitment strategy is built on creating an army of vulnerable, misled, and ultimately disloyal soldiers, and then your enemy comes along and gives them a super easy way out, well, you've created a crisis that just feeds on itself. So you really have to ask, is Russia's biggest enemy no longer on the other side of the battlefield, but actually within its own ranks?